I just found joy. I'm as happy as a baby boy with another brand new choo-choo toy. When I'm with my sweet Lorraine, she's got a pair of eyes that are bluer than the summer skies. When you see them, you will realize why I love my sweet Lorraine. When it's raining, I don't miss the sun, 'cause it's in my sweetie's smile. And to think that I'm the lucky one who will lead her down the aisle. Each night I pray that no one will steal her heart away. I can't wait until that lucky day when I marry sweet Lorraine. Piano players in those days how to feed for a soloist. He was just a wonderful player. Well, I was talking about coming here and discovering that Birdland had just opened. I was afraid that I'd missed 52nd Street because by the time I got here in 1950, that was Jimmy Ryan's was the only club that was still playing jazz on that block. All the other places are now either Chinese restaurants or strip clubs. But Birdland had just opened over on Broadway in 52nd, and Bird was there with his band. Well, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the history of Charlie Parker, but he had come on the scene in a way that just shocked the whole jazz world. Like Al Cohen said, it wasn't just that Charlie was better than everybody else. He said there was Charlie Parker and then there was everybody else, you know. He was just that good not only as an instrumentalist, but as an inventor. He thought of just wonderful phrases that fit the harmony so beautifully. So when I went to Birdland, you could get in there for 75 cents and sit there all night. There were 3 sections: the bar, where you were expected to drink; the tables, where you might be expected to order some food; and what we called the peanut gallery, which was at the end of the bandstand, where you could just sit. And so I would go down there when they opened, pay my 75 cents, and sit there till they threw me out. It was like going to school. Charlie Parker's band was Red Rodney, Bud Powell, Tommy Potter, Roy Haynes, and Charlie. And then the house band opposite him was all the people that had recorded with him. So there was Al Haig, Max Roach, Curly Russell, Miles Davis, J.J. Johnson, and Sonny Stitt. So it was like a lesson in modern jazz that you would have to pay hundreds of dollars in order to get that kind of a lesson today. You could get it for 75 cents there. And of course, it was such there was so much happening on that bandstand all the time that it was a magnet for all the other musicians in New York. You'd look around and, why, there's Ben Webster, why, there's Joe Jones, why, there's Art Tatum. These people would all come in and sit and listen to what was going on up there and soak it up, just like I was soaking it up. And one night, Lester Young came in and sat down next to Joe Jones, and I got my ear over there. I want to eavesdrop on what they're saying to each other. Well, they talked for about a half an hour, and I didn't understand one word they said. They had a secret code that they had made up while they were working on Basie's band, and all the terms were completely foreign to me. I had no idea what they were saying. But it was just a thrill to be around those people. And of course, I was starting to play the bass with different groups, hanging out at jam sessions, and learning from all these good players that were around New York at that time. And I eventually got with Teddy Charles's trio. We rehearsed every day and worked maybe twice a month, but it was just so full of music. And his guitar player got a real job, so he left, and Jimmy Rainey, who had been working with Stan Getz, was free that summer because Stan had gone to the coast by himself. So Jimmy came and worked with us, and when Stan came back, Jimmy got me on Stan's band. That was very nice of him. I thought it was just going to be a week in Boston, but it turned out to be 6 months of some of the most intensive learning. Now, Stan and I were both born the same year, but he was light years ahead of me as far as understanding about jazz and music in general. So every night that I went to work, it was like a lesson, you know. Of course, my first job with him in Boston, I'm playing this old K bass that I've got with gut strings, and the very first tune, we're playing a kind of up-tempo, and my D string snaps, this one. Well, it's hard to work around that empty hole, so I saw another bass laying under the piano, and I thought, well, I'm sure the house bass player won't mind if I just borrow his bass for a minute and I can change the string later. So I put my bass down, grab his bass, and it's a left-handed bass. I probably played more wrong notes than if I'd kept my own, but unfortunately, fortunately, I recovered and got my bass straight, and I think I sounded so bad on that first tune that Stan was glad I sounded much better on the rest of the set. Anyway, he ended up keeping me on the band. That band was Jimmy Rainey and a wonderful piano player from Pittsburgh named Jerry Kaminsky, who unfortunately didn't think anybody liked the way he played. He sounded like Hank Jones, but nobody could convince him that they loved the way he played. And the drummer was Roy Haynes, who had been with Charlie Parker, but he was living in Boston that year. So we got him. It's funny, when I first heard Roy, he was playing with Lester Young when I was in the Army. Then I come to New York a couple years later, and he's playing with Bird. And then a year later, I go to Boston, and I'm playing with him. And he's still playing. He's like 91 now, I think. A wonderful musician. So anyway, the second week, Roy didn't want to stay on the group. We had a week in Birdland. So Kenny Clark came, and excuse me, Frank Isola came. He was the next drummer. And Duke Jordan was our piano player. So we went out and did a couple of jobs in Baltimore and Chicago, I think. Then we came back. We were supposed to have a week off in Birdland, in New York, and Stan calls me up and says, we got a week in Birdland. They just got a cancellation. So I run over there, and while I'm setting up, here's Kenny Clark setting up the drums. And I said, oh, Frank Isola must be busy, you know. So we play the first set, and they always broadcast that set on the radio. Symphony Sid was the disc jockey. And on the second set, I'm starting to set up, and I see Frank Isola sitting down in the peanut gallery. And I say, Frank, what happened? He says, I don't know. I turned on the radio and found out I was fired. So that was kind of the way Stan was. He could be very sweet, and he could be very mean, and he could be very devious. And at one time, Zoot Sims said, yeah, Stan Getz, he's a nice bunch of guys. So that was part of my training there. Playing with Stan, I got to play with Duke Jordan, a wonderful piano player. Playing with Jimmy Rainey, I learned a lot of chord changes from Jimmy. Then after Duke Jordan and Kenny Clark got a job somewhere